Take two.
Yeah, okay.
Room noise. Here we go. This episode of Merely a Setback is brought to you by Demonology Warlocks. Demonology Warlocks. Their summoning skills are impressive.
It's time to get your battle text scrolling and that trade chat trolling, and buckle up for the podcast about storytelling in the world of Warcraft. This is Merely a Setback.
Greetings, fellow lore walkers, and welcome to Merely a Setback, a podcast about storytelling in the world of Warcraft. My name is Sharku, and I'm coming to you from my podcasting perch high in the mountains of North Carolina. I'm also a player on the Convert to Raid Battle.net News, a raid leader for the Asparagus Initiative, a member of the CTR community, and just a big Blizzard fanboy. And let's introduce our lore masters for the evening, hailing from the Great White North of Ontario, Canada, where he lives off of, I don't know,
Brambles, I guess.
Brambles, free healthcare, and Wolverine teeth, maybe. Yeah. It's Shoe Boots. Shoe Boots, how you doing, bud?
I am doing fantastic, Sharku, and I have been leveling through the wetlands and the Arathi Highlands on my 30-something dwarf shaman, and I am loving the new leveling system. It's awesome. It's so nostalgic. I'm in trouble. I'm far from home. Things are dire. It's everything that I could want it to be without any of the problems of vanilla. So
it just takes way too long to do it. According to the internet.
Once it does, but once you get past that, like once you kind of like say, okay, that's not what this is about anymore. This isn't about just like leveling up as fast as possible, and you start playing, right. You just start having these vanilla moments, I call them, where it's like, oh, there's too many. I gotta run.
I remember when I first started playing this game, I got to Booty Bay on my Tauren Shaman. And I had to have a friend. Like I remember, like not wanting to play the game anymore. And this tells you it actually wasn't vanilla. So I was on AIM and I saw a buddy of mine on, and I instant messaged him and I was like, "This game you told me about so great, it's not, and I hate it, and I don't know what to do." He's like, "Oh, what server you on? I'll roll somebody." And he was like at my level that took me 2 weeks to get to in like 5 minutes. Yeah. And I was like, dude, what are your magic? He's like, yeah, that's all right. Here, let's go. I'll help you. And he carried me through Booty Bay. So, or it wasn't Booty. It was Ratchet, not Ratchet. It was not Booty Bay. It was the pirates over there. But yeah. Well, also joining us from the live music capital of the world in Austin, Texas, where he survives by feeding off of lies about music capitals and cacti. It's Jared. What's up, man?
Hey, not a whole lot. Just doing the same thing that Shoe Boots is doing, except on a dwarf hunter, actually. And I am also in the wetlands and heading to Arathi Basin shortly after that.
With your bear pet?
Yes.
Gotta
actually, no. I got a fox. There was a rare spawned fox, and I tamed it. And its name is like Silverback or something. I don't remember. Anyway, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But aside from that, I am trying to recover my brain from pouring through the immense wall of data that we were just flooded with this week, which we'll get to shortly.
I already have a headache. I have to be at work tomorrow, and this is just it's an absolute chore to put on this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I love it. I love this. I love everything. I'm just realizing now, by the way, what DK Rye was saying in the chat about the different time zones. Mm-hmm. It's 9 CET, not Central, 9 Central Euro time. Right. Which is a different place and time and universe, apparently. Sorry. This was those of you that didn't listen to the pre-show, we were discussing time zones and got very confused. But anyway, we'll get to that information later as well. That reminds you of what?
Oh, just a riddle. If you're Asian before you go to the bathroom and American when you get out, what are you while you're inside the bathroom? European.
That's a good one. But see, I've heard it a different way. It's if you are Russian when you go in and Finnish when you come out. What are you in between? European. Some more puns. Just triple puns on that one. Russian when you go in, but you're Finnish when you come out. What are you in between? European. God. We're gonna say that joke one more time. You're Russian.
Boo on all of those.
That's a good one though. All right. So announcements. We've got some announcements this week, guys. We are happy to announce that our first Patreon goal has been reached. Yay! Yay! So, and this was okay. So we cheated a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I've never done a Patreon or anything like that. And I'm like, oh, people are gonna give me $10,000 bajillion dollars. So I adjusted our goals a little bit to so that you guys can get more content out there quicker. And for the amazing and wonderful people that have donated the money to our Patreon, we're ever so thankful. And we never really expected anything. We want to do all these things anyway for the show, and your Patreon donations just kind of help that happen. But it's nothing we don't expect it. We just it helps us out, and we can't be any more thankful to you guys. But yeah, we altered those a little bit after second thought on some of those goals, and our first goal was to open up a Discord server so that we will have a 24-hour lore chat where you guys can get in there and tell us about how bad we are, and so we can get information out to you guys, argue about how Shoe Boots is completely wrong about the Horde and that they're the best and they can deal. He just has to get over that.
Or likewise argue that Sharku is wrong and the Horde or the Alliance is the way to go.
Not at all.
Right.
Also,
but,
Jared, but if you are going to call me out, if you're a Hordey, you have to link me your character and show me that you're not a blood elf first. Because if you're a blood elf,
elves,
subscribe to being a Hordey, you're full. I can't say what you're full of on this show, but I might later. Anyway,
blood elves are Alliance. They got kicked out of the Alliance for being snooty. But anyway, there you go. So we have a new Discord server that Jared is live tweeting out to you guys from.
Yep, link is up on our Twitter at Setback Podcast. Go check it out.
Setback Podcast Twitter right now.
Drop what you're doing.
Go ahead. Jump in there, find that link. I'm also going to later post it on our Patreon page, which we are now using as a website until we get a website up. But you should be able to find the information for our live server there. And everyone is invited. You do not have to be a patron to join our Discord server. I want to make that very clear. Please join our Discord servers. There might be some little like a special patron chat room or something like that. So you guys can be elitists, I guess, in there. I don't know. But yeah, everyone is absolutely 100% invited to join. So please join us on that Discord server. We are happy to have you in there. And who knows who's going to be a part of the Discord server as we have special guests and things like that. Might even have an opportunity to talk to some pretty cool people, assuming that Sharku gets his way, which he always does, and gets all of the special guests he wants to get. So we already had. We've already had. I'm already completely blown away by just the Taliesin and Evitel episode, which I'm going to bring up from now until eternity because I fanboy over them all the time. But yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. But yeah, that's our big announcement for the week. Yay!
Yay!
All right. So as we go into the show, just want to remind all of any new listeners that. This is absolutely a spoiler show. We are going to spoil everything, and my God, is there a lot to spoil today. So as soon as it hits the PTR and the little gnomes and trolls and dwarves that work over at Wowhead scour the internet for what seemed to be only like 10 minutes, but they found so much stuff. But as soon as something's data mined, we're going to be into it. We're going to look at it. Klaus wants to join the podcast. Hey, Klaus.
Klaus?
My dog. Yeah, my dog just walked in. Do you want to say hi? Like, the door was shut. I have no idea how he opened it. You lack the opposable thumbs to do that. Where are you going? All right.
Your dog's name is Klaus.
I know. Hold on. I've got to here.
I wish to have a doggy treat.
This is Hannah's dog. Say hi to the fans, Klaus. You're on a podcast, buddy.
Hi, Klaus.
Hello, everybody. My name is Klaus. His full name, you guys can't read this, but she named him on his tag because you have to have a full like puppy name if you do dog shows, and she thought he was going to do dog shows, but look at him. There's no way. You're an ugly piece of garbage, Klausy. His full name is Clausius Golden Prince of Naboo.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
That's Hannah. I love
That's
her.
a mouthful.
I know she hears me talking about it right now, and she's steaming about it. Go see mommy and tell her not to hate me. All right. Anyway, we'll move on. What was I talking about? Spoilers. We're going to spoil the show. We're going to spoil it a lot. So be prepared for that. But first, this week in World of Warcraft, got a pretty big event happening tomorrow. Shoe Boots, what's going on?
Tomorrow, Sir Ian McKellen Hazacostas will be having a Q&A with his trusty sidekick Lore. And they do Q&As from time to time, and they're always great. This one is particularly great because it is specifically about Battle for Azeroth. And this is the first time that they're doing a Q&A specifically about Battle for Azeroth that I'm aware of. So I think they're going to drop a lot of stuff on us. I think they're going to answer probably a lot of questions about all the information that's been data mined this week.
Right.
And I'm also hoping and praying that we're going to get an announcement of the opening of public beta.
Yes,
That's the big speculation that's cropped up from this because as we all know, beta servers are live. 8.0.1 build is currently live. That's where we got all of our information that we're talking about in a couple of minutes.
It makes sense. The first thing they opened up when they did Legion, they had a friends and family and community alpha where they gave the alpha to podcasters, and I got one. But they gave the alpha to podcasters and YouTubers and friends and family to do kind of it was almost an advertisement tool, I think. Honestly, let's be honest, that's what it was.
Right.
It was, hey, here's Demon Hunters, play this on your stream so people will watch you and get excited about it. But it doesn't seem like they're doing that now. It seems like everything is set up for I'm so sorry. Get out of here. What are you doing? We're live.
Are you talking to me or the dog?
Yeah, I'm talking to both of you. I can't believe that. I'm not editing this out of the show either. This is the best. Come on, you're wasting time. Are you going to be nice? If you're nice, you can stay. Don't fight.
All right, I'll be nice.
All right. I'm sorry.
I can't believe you've done this, Shoe Boots.
I know. But yeah, it's going to be super, super cool because it looks like they're just going to go straight public. They're just going to do that same thing where they said, hey, when something comes off the PTR, something else is going to be coming up. And that's what's already happened. They're already building the PTR. And I don't see why they wouldn't launch it for everybody. I think the days of access codes and closed betas at least for World of Warcraft are over, which would be really exciting.
That's the way it seems. Definitely the way it seems right now. But we won't know until tomorrow anyway. So
right.
Well, I think there's two interesting things about this announcement. One is that it's starting to show that the Legion Alpha was probably somewhat of a anomaly in that they launched it. They didn't announce it at BlizzCon. They launched an alpha long before a beta, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fallout of Warlords of Draenor. They just wanted to shift the conversation sooner than they maybe were ready to. And I think that the fact that they're doing it, in a sense, in the more traditional way this time, shows that this is how they would prefer to do it, and they're totally comfortable doing it for the main reason that is quite different than we've ever seen before, that the turnaround is so much faster than we've ever seen before, right? We're still getting... I mean, you could argue that 732 was the last raid, and that came out end of November, early December, so maybe 2 months ago. I prefer to think that the fair day to say that we're officially in the lull is the day that the last wing of Raid Finder comes out. So we've been in the lull officially for 2 weeks now. And I've said before on this podcast, I'm expecting this. I'm expecting to see this expansion live and available to play before September, which would make it by far the shortest turnaround we've ever seen.
Yeah,
and that's amazing. That they're cutting it in like half of the average. So, in that sense, this is very unique. They've never done anything this quick before, and certainly, I don't think there's time for an alpha when they're firing on all cylinders like this.
Right. And that just goes back to Ian's what he was talking about last year. At some point, he had an interview where he talked about the cadence that they've gotten into with patch releases and cycles. That philosophy that he brought whenever he became lead design is definitely showing, and he's sticking to his guns. I love it.
Yeah,
I absolutely love it.
It's been great. So we're going to go ahead and move on because we got a ton of stuff to talk about today. But 8.0.1 info has been data mined. So they already put the build on the PTR. People have been able to get in there, get the files, find pictures, and whatever they have out there. They've got new models, mounts, weapons, Zandalari trolls, customization options, music, all sorts of stuff out there. And then spells and talent changes for classes have also been data mined, and you can see those on Wowhead. There's just an incredible amount of stuff that I can, if you have not taken a look at the Wowhead stuff, as far as the data mine goes, I mean, I didn't have a huge opportunity to be able to look over a lot of it, but you guys have spent hours just reading and looking at pictures. I mean, it's not just one little page that like, hey, here's a new mount. It is tons of stuff that has been made available to people. So,
yeah.
And it's not like Blizzard doesn't they know if they put something on the PTR, we're going to get it. Like that's what Wowhead does. So they're like, if they didn't call Wowhead ahead of time, they might as well should have. You know what I mean? And just but it's one of those things that like they're going to get it. They're putting that out there for us to get us excited about what's coming up, and also to give us some cool information, and probably so that they can answer questions about them.
I think it's very orchestrated in that respect, right? They announced the Q&A, and then immediately after this became available. Like, that's not by coincidence.
No.
And so they want us to have this information before the Q&A, so that because this answers a ton of questions we would have had and raises a ton of questions that they'd probably rather answer. So this is all on purpose as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And there's no trickery or anything either. It's maybe it's thinly veiled by, that's in the files. You don't know. And of course, anything on the PTR is subject to change anyway. However,
at any point.
Right. But I even saw devs tweeting about the B mount. There's a B. Is it a mount or a mount? It's a mount.
It's a mount.
It's both.
Okay.
There's
two
versions. They found models with and without saddles. So there's going to be mobs out in the world. I am so excited I want to see the size of this thing. I hope. I'm guessing it's going to be bigger than I want it to be, but I love the idea of it being just like almost too small,
like a little tiny bee and a giant tauren riding it.
Just like make it the size of like a beach ball, and so you're just like that would be so great.
I would only ride that mount seriously if someone came up with an add-on that made it to where the music changed to Flight of the Bumblebee.
Right. Yeah. Oh God, that needs to happen. Every time you mount it, it's just that's not Flight of the Bumblebee.
That's not at all.
That's Wizard of Oz.
Close enough.
What am I doing? What is it? I'm not even going to try to do, because I'm remembering what Flight of the Bumblebee sounds like now, and I'm not even going to try. Not even gonna try. But we've got some other stuff that we want to talk about. Make sure you go and see Wowhead. And we're probably going to talk more about it next week. Let's be honest. There's so much stuff. We might be talking about this for 2 months until we actually get the pre-patch. But
one thing I would add real quick is I know there was an initial sort of outcry when people saw the numbers adjustments to the abilities and stuff. Guys, there's a total massive overhaul to all numbers like a much bigger stat squish than we've ever seen before is happening. Stat squish to not just stats, but item levels, to HP, to everything. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And I would also strongly recommend that if you want to make better sense of what's being said about your class, I know myself, like I look at that and I can kind of make out some of what's going on, but I can't really see the whole picture. Dial up and go to the Discord servers if you need to. Dial up your favorite YouTuber. Like I can recommend, for example, if you're a Warlock, Alkalon and Pyromancer have gone into great detail about the changes to Warlock, and for Rogue, Infectious has done a great job of sort of like sifting through all the changes and what they mean and how the class changes. So there's a lot of great resources, and those are just two examples.
Yeah, absolutely. Numbers are fake news at this point, guys. Like, first of all, they're going to change, and second of all, they're tuning it for the new content. Like, they're not that they're completely disregarding the old content. They still want it to work, and they don't want one class to be super OP if you're trying to like do like a Play 60 type thing, but not Play 60. What am I talking? Project 60.
Right.
Is that
Right.
what it's called? Okay. Play 60 is the NFL's initiative to go outside 1 hour a day. It failed for me. But anyway, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Mages are still going to be on top, and everybody else will submit to their authority. But there we go. So we have some other stuff we want to talk about. There's been a lot of news about the Zandalari troll backstory, and Jared, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So we got some battle or the broadcast text data mined from it, and what we gathered from it is that is the introduction of the Zandalari trolls to Horde Society, and that was brought to us through a bit of the storyline, which we'll get into a little bit later, that we're going to talk about in the lore deep dive. But essentially, we meet the Zandalari King as Horde players. We meet the Zandalari King, King Rastakhan, after rescuing his daughter from Stormwind alongside Sourfang after the initial introduction sequence to the expansion. And shortly after meeting him, he allies himself with the Horde after learning that the Blood Trolls have occupied Nazmir, which is the Titan. The Titan like lab that was teased at BlizzCon, the old god Titan kind of experimentation
The
chamber.
first raid. The first raid,
Right.
right?
Isn't that Aldir?
No,
Are we-
Nazmir.
Okay.
Old Deer, what I'm reading right now, it will continue the Battle of Azeroth's first raid. Old Deer, the Halls of Control. Old Deer, the Halls of Control is a Titan facility found in Nazmir, Zandalar.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah,
So
Nazmir
Nazmir is
slightly
one of the
wrong.
regions.
It's like a
in-
region of the zone.
Right,
And
okay.
Old
I
Deer,
understand now.
Old Deer is the Halls of Control. Anyway, there we go. Making
Okay,
it clear.
so I was slightly wrong. But anyway,
No,
that's-
I just
that's how-
misunderstood.
No, and that's, I'm glad you called that out, because I totally don't like being wrong. But anyway, that's how the whole Zandalari tribe is brought into existence. So we can tell just from that we're not getting allied races in the pre-patch. we're getting them with the expansion. At least we're getting the Zandalari trolls. It doesn't really necessarily mean that we won't be getting High Mountain Tauren or what is it?
I still think definitely High Mountain Torton and
The
Void Elves.
Void Elves, yeah. It doesn't put them out of the running for the pre-patch, and I definitely think that it's going to be with the pre-patch.
And maybe
if,
even the Nightborn and the what's the other alliance one? Not Dark Iron, Lightforged.
Lightforged.
Right. Yeah. Those four are definitely still in the running for being introduced in the pre-patch alongside a pre-order for the expansion, most likely. So yeah, that's what we have. That's it.
They can't have the cool races come out yet. You know, you gotta the trolls and the Dark Iron Dwarves, which that's what I want to play a Dark Iron Dwarf. That's what I'm most excited about as far as the new races go. And yeah, we'll see. We'll figure about that. We'll figure about that, says words are hard. But yeah, exactly. So that's going to be really, really cool. We've got the Zandalari storyline coming up. We also have scenarios that follow the Alliance and the Horde through the Battle of Lordaeron. Shoeboots, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Well, it's we're starting to see the first kind of building blocks, I guess you could say, of what's going to happen at the start of this expansion. And I will say this much: I've read through this. It's kind of tough to really, at least for me, I didn't make a ton of sense about what's happening on the Alliance side. Although it does appear that we will meet Jaina Proudmoore during the Battle of Lordaeron. It looks like she will kind of appear towards the end. And so I'm super excited about this. This is a moment we've been waiting for a long time. I think that doing it in a scenario in the midst of battle gives them a lot of kind of opportunity to do it in like an epic cutscene, or maybe one of the, the new tech that kind of includes us in the cutscene. That would be really cool. But at least unless they've added more since I've read it, there wasn't a ton there. There was a lot more information that I read about what Jared was talking about, the Zandalar scenario from the Horde's perspective, sort of in the aftermath of the battle. And from what I've read there, that I'm really excited about it. Like I'm obviously not a Horde main, but I'll certainly be playing through this. I love the idea of having to sneak into Stormwind. If you've played a rogue and done the assassination artifact quest, you have to sneak into Stormwind as well. But the idea of sneaking into the enemy capital city to rescue Sarfang from the stockades is just an awesome. It just sounds like an awesome scenario, and I hope they do some justice to Sarfang in the terms of, like, he strikes me as the kind of character that would not surrender. So I hope that they go to the trouble of saying that he's really being held against his will and he had no other alternative but to be taken captive. But it also explains, because this is the thing I've been kind of wondering, we haven't seen the Zandalari trolls since Throne of Thunder, when we, Horde and Alliance, destroyed them as far as we were concerned. So it sounds like they've come up with a really cool way to sort of bring the Horde back into the fold with the Zandalar, in that in your efforts to rescue Sarfang, you end up rescuing Princess, is it Talanji? Her name's not in front of me.
But yes.
And then that gives you passage to speak to the Zandalar. And it sounds like, kind of looking at the sort of data mine text, that there's a confrontation of influences for King Rastakhan. There's another, there's still the camp that wants to retake the world for the trolls, as we saw the Zandalar do first in Cataclysm and then in Throne of Thunder. But there's the other camp that thinks that's misguided. So I just kind of like that they're addressing all those old things, and it's not just going to be like, oh, I guess we'll be on your side now,
Right.
So that looks really good. I'm really curious to see more on the Alliance side, and maybe if there is more that I missed. Have you guys come across anything?
There's just I don't know.
There isn't much. There isn't much, but the broadcast data text that was data mined brings us through kind of an idea of what exactly is happening in the battles for both sides, for the Horde and the Alliance. Like for example, the Alliance, you meet with Greymane in Brill, of all places.
Right.
That the Brill being the starting zone for the undead, the Forsaken. That's where they raise their dead, and we're meeting with Greymane there to launch our assault from Brill. Just let that soak in for a little bit. That that's pretty heavy. It's got a lot of implications, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But either way, the long and short of what we gather from it is that the Alliance is pressing the attack, and they keep pressing until they reach their goal, which it's not entirely sure what the goal is, except for the last bit of the scenario that we'll be playing through. The title of that little quest portion is The Dark Lady, Pursue Sylvanas, which leads everyone to believe, and we kind of gathered this from the cinematic that was played at BlizzCon, but the goal of attacking Lordaeron, attacking the Undercity, was not to retake the city entirely. It was to get Sylvanas, to corner her and get her in a position where we could either capture her or otherwise. We never know with Greymane having King Anduin's ear. We don't know exactly what the goal is exactly, but we know that it was to get Sylvanas in some way or another. We end up getting Sourfang instead, which you brought up a point about him not being very likely to go willingly, which leads me to believe that we beat him pretty savagely to get him to a point where we could shackle him in the first place. But that it's all huge, and I absolutely can't wait to play through it myself.
Mm-hmm. I just one piece that jumps out to me here. So these are like the different chapters of the Alliance scenario. They have little names. And there's the one that's like, she's getting away, and it says pursue Sylvanas in the gyrocopter. So is there going to be like some sort of aerial chase across Lordaeron?
You guys remember 10 years ago when they said there were going to be aerial battles in
God,
Burning Crusade?
Yeah. Yes.
This is it.
Yes.
This is going to be it. That would be really cool, honestly. If they, I don't know, whatever. It's going to be like Pokemon, though. Like, it's going to be turn-based aerial battles.
Right.
Get in there. Anyway.
Not like Star Wars.
Not like Star Wars. No, I guess not. But yeah, it'll be interesting whatever happens. But yeah, there's just so much. It's cool seeing the story come together this way, and even still, this is all speculation. When it happens, it's still gonna, it's gonna surprise us. I think what the actual ifs and ands and or buts are gonna be with all of this stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. I think that what I'm most concerned about is what happened to Zappy Boy at the back. Like, that's really, like, does Zappy Boy die? Is that why they took him out? Like, did Zappy Boy die protecting Sourfang? Because that's what I think Zappy Boy would have done. And then he's going to be resurrected with Vol'jin, right?
Right.
Obviously.
I think
the Loa.
I'm sure
are going to resurrect them.
Yeah.
I'm sure his NPC is already hidden somewhere in these
Zappy
files.
Boy is already a Loa, so we don't even need to, like, he's the Loa god of trolls, of Loa trolls. He's going to come back as, they're going to make being a troll an animal, just like all the other Loa. And that's what he's going to, I don't know. He'll figure it out.
One thing that I think it's no coincidence that is completely absent from all of this data mine text is no discussion whatsoever about the events of Teldrassil. They're still keeping that tight under wraps. Like, I am certain that the game has information within the file that they are not putting in the public build yet. They want to keep that under their hat still.
Right. And I have a theory that that is going to be the end scenario, or one of the end scenarios that we'll get in the pre-patch leading into, or it'll be the pre-event going into 8.
Which is what?
8.0.1. The whatever happens with Teldrassil, like that'll be
the burning of the Great Tree.
Yeah.
Right. Well, but Teldrassil's supposed to happen before the siege of the siege of Lordaeron.
We think so, but I got to be honest. I was in my head. I was like, when did we confirm that? And granted, it wasn't like a comprehensive search.
Something at BlizzCon.
I went on a little search the other day, and I actually couldn't find the originating source of that. I think, like, that's an assumption we're all making, and I have that assumption myself, because I think somebody said it somewhere, but I got to be honest, I can't find where it was said.
Right. I want to say it was one of the deep dives.
It was on. I think it was on Saturday. One of the panels that they were talking about the whole thing. They said the Horde strikes first when they asked, or someone asked the question, like, does the siege of Lordaeron happen or the burning of Teldrassil happen first? And their answer to that was the Horde strikes first.
Well, and here's the thing. The interesting thing about that could be that the Horde found the Azerite. So maybe that's them striking first. Maybe that's the first pawn being moved out on the board. if that makes sense. Like it's not
It's entirely
they're not
possible.
attacking anything, but they started this thing in motion by going after the Azerite.
Mhm.
Maybe that's what they're thinking, but I don't know. It could be, and just because the Horde strikes first doesn't necessarily mean that Teldrassil happens first, but
And by the way,
that's what I'm assuming.
I'm gonna make the prediction right now that Malfurion Stormrage will die in the burning of Teldrassil.
I've been calling Malf dying so many times.
Right, but
His stupid hots keep ticking, and it's.
I'm not begging for him to die. I know a lot of people want him to die. I'm just saying he will.
I'm not a Malfurion fan. I've talked about but I always go back on that. Like every time I say that, I said 3 weeks ago that I wasn't an Anduin fan, and then last week we spent the whole episode talking about how cool Anduin was, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. He is pretty cool.
His horse is pretty cool. Have you seen his horse in the data files?
Right.
But now I prefer Anduin a billion times before. I'm still mad because Tyrande picked the wrong twin. Like, and I know he like gives it up at the end of Legion, right? He's all like, you know, we could have never been me with my brother and treat him well. I'm not a bad guy anymore. And it's all sad. Illidan got soft.
Yeah,
but
that was a soft moment.
She picked the wrong twin, man.
He's not boyfriend material. Come on. He's a one night stand.
Yeah.
Like
he's
a great one night stand.
I don't care. No, there's a difference. There's somewhere in between one night stand and boyfriend material that I'm going to call here and now an every night stand. And that's what Illidan is.
You heard it here first, folks.
You go do what you want to, Wild Stallion, but you come home to me every night. That's what I need. Confirmed. Sharku has a very strange erotic fantasy going on in his head with Illidan. Apparently, what's going on? There you go. But yeah, let's move on a little bit because we have a lot to discuss in our lore section. That was the news. We got a little bit of news, but we're going to try to speculate. That was what?
Oh yeah. That was
that
the
supposed
lore.
to be lore too?
that was the lore, but yeah, speculation on it.
See, this is called this segment of the show. We're adding a new segment is called Jared interrupts Sharku and ruins the show. That has been Jared interrupts Sharku and ruins the show. Thanks, everybody.
Be back next week.
We'll see you next week. Now, moving on to the next section, which I thought was lore, but apparently the other stuff was too. And we did talk about a lot of lore stuff. But this is our speculation section then. The first question that I want to pose to our panel of experts here, without Brill or the Undercity, how does the undead race sustain its numbers? Will it die without a way to recruit new members? What's going on there? Either of you, take it. Let's go. I'm sorry.
Shubits, go ahead.
All right. I think the short answer is that they won't. I think that this serves the plot of making Sylvanas' search for a way to reproduce even more dire, right? She's kind of on her big plan to, as best as I can understand it, to subdue Aegir to force the, what do you call them?
Valkyr.
The Valkyr. To force the Valkyr to give their lives to the undead. Gen Greymane kind of ruined that plan at the end of the Stormheim questline. So now she's going to be even more desperate. She's got to figure something out. Her ally Helia is now dead as well. Whatever deal she had with her, we don't know. And now she's losing her homeland. I think this is all going to feed into the narrative of her desperately needing to do something. I don't know who she's going to turn to. Maybe there's something in the Shadowlands that can help her. Maybe the Whispers will start to call to her, the Whispers of the old gods. But she's in between a rock and a hard place. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm my only addition to that is that it's definitely plausible that she will be easily corrupted now by the old gods. Like she is ripe very, very, very ripe for that to happen, because she is going to inevitably start dabbling in things that she definitely should not be dabbling in, i.e., the Shadowlands, and trying to find a way to save, and I say that in quotations, save her people. Which there's also another narrative that kind of played out with the Horde in Legion, where there are members of the undead race that do not want eternal life. They don't want to live forever. They kind of miss their humanity in a way, and they don't want to live forever. But without their breeding ground of Brill, they're either gonna have to find a new place to breed new undead to keep their numbers, so they don't completely wipe off the face of the earth, and it's crazy. Like, there's so many ways that it can go.
I do think we should probably take a moment to talk about what the Shadowlands are, because we are referring to it, and if you've read Chronicle, you're somewhat familiar with them, but it is a part of the WoW lore that has very rarely been touched on up to this point. Just so those of you that aren't familiar, the Shadowlands is sort of like a sub-realm of Azeroth, and a sub-realm of everywhere, sort of like the Emerald Dream, I guess you could say, that hasn't really been explained much to us other than we've been told it's there. And we've seen it a handful of times in game. If you're like me, the most common place that you see it is when you're corpse running. When you die and you're in the dead area, that's the Shadowlands. The Shadowlands is where you go when you die. There have been a handful of quests where we go there. I believe we're visiting Helya in Trial of Valor and Maw of Souls. I think we're going to the Shadowlands in those instances. And actually in the Death Knight starting zone, you might recall you get a quest to go to the Shadowlands to get a horse, which becomes your mount. But other than that, there's maybe one or two more times that we've ever dealt with it. And it seems like a place that's really ripe for fresh storytelling. And I really hope that they pursue that with Sylvanas' kind of quest for her people. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. And I would, to kind of alter this question in a weird way, I'm not sure as far as timelines with the lore is concerned, if Sylvanas has ever recruited new members except for at the beginning of the game, right? The idea is the people coming from Brill, that's vanilla storyline, right? We are resurrecting the people of Brill, right? Those that the undead living in the grave, or that are buried in the graveyard in Brill, or in wherever.
I do believe that they, and it's been a while since I played it, but I do believe that in Cataclysm Revamp, they updated that starting zone so that you are an undead being kind of born during the events of Cataclysm.
Okay, so Cataclysm. So they had a second recruitment time.
Yeah, and I think that's important because the way that undead are created sort of changes after Cataclysm, because the Valkyr that we're following, the Lich King, have no one to follow after Arthas dies. And there's the short story where Sylvanas kills herself. She jumps to her death off of Icecrown Citadel, and the Valkyr resurrect her and offer an alliance with her. And that's why prior to the events of Icecrown Citadel, there are no Valkyr aligned with her, and after that, they're kind of her lieutenants.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember if there's
where they come. That's the idea. So they're raising undead soldiers.
Yeah, so I think that like all undead prior to Cataclysm would be from the Scourge, but then as of Cataclysm, when the Valkyr join with Sylvanas, they are now resurrecting new corpses to join the Forsaken. Is my understanding of it. But I guess from a key perspective, you can choose which one you want to be.
Right. That's interesting.
But it's still like going forward from this point, like from the events of the beginning of Battle for Azeroth, they will not have that available to them. Like they're going to, like, obviously she's going to set up shop in Orgrimmar. It's the logical thing for her. She's war chief. She's going to be set up there. She's not going to have access to the Undercity and Brill, and not going to be able to resurrect people from there. There aren't any human settlements in Kalimdor. There just aren't. They don't exist. There isn't somewhere for her to go, which begs the question: is she going to start recruiting non-human undead people, and is that going to be
Is that an
allied
allied race? I think there's definitely, yeah.
That would be awesome. That would be
Forsaken
really cool.
orcs,
Like,
or,
yeah, I'd be down with that. But yeah, and I don't know. I'm confused kind of by the way that the undead come about. Anyway, it was a lot simpler when it was just
it was
when it
Scourge.
was just the scourge, and then that was an event that happened, right? Sylvanas
right?
is recruiting an army of the scourge that broke power with the Lich King after the events of the Third War.
Right.
And she's recruiting an army to battle him once again and find reluctant allies in the Horde, right? And that's where that was an event that happened once, right? And so it's not this constant, because in that mind, this idea that she's constantly from that point, even with the aid of the Valkyr, the idea or their power is limited in some way, right? Because she's still trying to get the Lantern and Legion.
Right.
Yeah, so again, this is my understanding, and a lot of this comes from a few of the short stories on WoW's website, including one that actually came out really recently about Nathanos Blightcaller. But the Valkyr have the ability. She has a finite amount of Valkyr, right? Because not all Valkyr are with her, just the ones that were with the Lich King, and the sort of undead Valkyr are ones from the Shadowlands, I guess you could say. And that, I mean, in some way, that's got to be her connection to Helya, because that's what Helya's Valkyr are like, is my assumption. But so Valkyr can raise the dead, and that's how your standard undead Forsaken becomes, these days. That's how you make a Forsaken. But a Valkyr can also give her life to make you a better undead. And there's a short story that was recently published to Blizzard's website about how a Valkyr does that for Nathanos Blightcaller, which is why he looks like Sylvanas, where he's got the red eyes and he's got the replenished skin. He's still undead, but he's not rotting. And that's basically how all of her Dark Rangers are made. Her Dark Rangers have all their skin. They're not decomposing. Presumably, for each Dark Ranger, a Valkyr has given her life for that Dark Ranger. So if she wants to make more of that kind of undead,
she needs special powers.
She needs more Valkyr, essentially, to do it. Yeah.
Interesting. Right. I don't know. But I do know, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is either way, she's running out of time. Either way, she's like, I don't even think she herself understands her finality, right? Is she immortal or not? Like, can the undead do the undead, like the actual undead, assuming they're continually decomposing, will eventually decompose past the point of being able to be autonomous, right? They can't move, they can't whatever. They're just and what's terrifying about that is if undeath is eternal, but your physical form has decomposed to a point to where you're just an entity existing in an immovable physical form. Or what? I mean, I don't know. That's the scariest thing I've thought about in a long time. You know what I mean? Just sort of being there and not being dead. That's not nothing. You're just a pile of bone dust.
Right. And I think that's her goal isn't to give eternal life, but to prevent that eventuality from becoming reality.
Well, and then does she this undead life, right, that the Valkyr gives her and Nathanos, this, is that an immortal type thing? Is that something like the Night Elves? Like, is that something that you live until you die?
I guess.
Not from or is it not?
Until you get killed?
And being an elf herself, is that something that, You know,
It's entirely
is
possible.
there an immortal sort of thing there? But all of this, either way, something, you know, they can't reproduce. Eventually, you know, by law of statistics, that they're going to die out, even if they are immortal. Something's going to kill them, right?
Right.
Eventually, something will probably happen. And the thing is, they can't sustain their numbers in any way, and I think that's already the case. Even if they're trying to even if more people die and you can resurrect more undead, there's still this finality to it, and it's this weird. And also, she's just like, you were saying it before, Sylvanas is just nuts anyway.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think obviously the undeath is going to alter her psyche, alter her mental health and emotions
and even if it hasn't, her experiences would, right? Like she's
Right.
been through insane events,
right, and she like killing herself and actually succeeding in it, right? Being
And
killed
then
by the Lich
brought
King,
back from that.
right?
And here's another thing. Like I'm going to, because we're presumably going to do a Sylvanas episode soon. It could have even been this week if not for the data dump. But I'm going to go back and reread that story, and maybe we all should, because she does die, and the death that awaits her scares her so much that she makes this deal. Like she is the death that is awaiting her, the hell that is awaiting her because of what she is, because she's a banshee, is as I recall extremely terrifying, and that's like her motivation to avoid death. It's that she doesn't want the eternal suffering that is coming her way. Death will not be permanent for her, at least if I remember correctly. That's what the story told us. But I will revisit that story and make sure I'm not talking out of school, or whatever this phrase is.
Death finds us all. Death finds us
That
all.
it does.
But yeah, I think as far as Brill Undercity, that no longer having, I think that's more. I don't think that's as much along the lines of, hey, we need to recruit new undead, and the starting zones in Brill. The starting zone for undead, I am assuming, is still going to be in Brill, and it's going to be it's going to be a different timeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not. I don't think she's thinking in that realm. I think it's more along the lines of, that's mine. That's the only home I've ever known in this form. That's the only, and it's mine. And I started. It's mine. You can't have it. And it's more along those lines of, I won't let anything else be taken from me. That's the fact that someone other. And honestly, I think she felt the same way during Cataclysm with Garrosh. Like, I think when the orcs came in, and because he didn't trust the undead anymore after what happened at the Wrathgate, and came in, and the Kokron were, the authority in Undercity, she didn't like that either. And that's why, and I think that's why she ultimately joined against the plot against Garrosh. I think she would have been there from the beginning. And she's like, all right, so this new guy, I'm not cool. And everybody else in the Horde, like Bane and Vol'jin, are like, not Sylvanas, chill out. Like, we just gotta, it's what Thrall said to do, let's do it. And she's like, all right, but I'm not cool with it. And then by the time they got on board, and Garrosh is terrible. She's like, finally, let's go. Taking my city back. She didn't like it. She doesn't like it. That's her city. That's her home. That's the only thing. And that's, I think, what's going to, the fact that I do not think it's going to sit well with her. I think it will cause even more rash decisions, or whatever we want to call them. It's going to be more risky choices, more desperate choices from Sylvanas, because that's just unacceptable. And she'll do anything to get it back.
It'll be really interesting to see how her personal needs and the needs of her people come more and more into direct conflict with the needs of the Horde and what she does. Like, Blizzard has an opportunity to write the story of her standing up and becoming the war chief the Horde needs, but they also have the opportunity to write the story of her not being the war chief, of her choosing her people or herself. One of the wonderful things about this character is that the way they've set it up is that they can go almost any direction they want without betraying the character.
Right.
Because there's just so much conflict there. It's great.
Right.
Yeah, it's really cool. So we're going to move on to another question, and this one is, how will Anduin treat his now second orc captive? What do you think, Jared?
I think he will probably treat him in the same manner that he treated Garrosh when he was on trial. I think that he, and that might be stretching it a little bit, because he didn't respect Garrosh for what he had done, but he still treated him with some form of humility whenever he went down to talk to him before the trial in Pandaria. But he was still human. He was still not ill-meaning towards him, if that suits you. And I think it's going to be very similar to that, but I think there's going to be a little bit more respect for Saurfang than he had for Garrosh, definitely, because Saurfang is a hero. He was a hero in the Wrath of the Lich King events, and I think Anduin knows it. And that's pretty much all I have to say on it, because that's.
Well, there's an interesting indirect history between these two characters. You may recall Saurfang's son was turned into a Death Knight, and he's a raid boss in Icecrown Citadel.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Upon beating that encounter, you get a different sort of experience depending on whether you're Horde or Alliance. But if you're Alliance, Varian Rin and Jaina show up because they're part of the assault, and like all raids, the big important leaders show up just as you kill everything. They're not actually there for the fight. But you might recall that Saurfang, the senior, Varrock, he shows up to collect the body of his son. And is it Muradin? I think Muradin's there.
Muradin and Jaina are like, get him.
Yeah, and Muradin says, I can't let you pass. Like, I can't let you do it. And that's when Varian Rin shows up and says, let him pass. And Varian Rin has a moment where he says to Varrock, he's like, I wasn't at the Wrathgate, but I heard that your son fought bravely, or something to that effect. And he allows Varrock Saurfang to collect his son's body to take him home for a proper burial. And I think that Saurfang's going to remember that. Now, it sounds like we might not actually get the wonderful chance to see Saurfang and Anduin encounter each other. Like, I would love to see that in some form, whether in-game or in a novel or a short story. But it sounds like Saurfang's captivity is going to be pretty short-lived, so I'm not sure that we're going to get to see that. But I think there is a mutual respect there. And I would love to see them kind of revisit that. And I fully expect that Anduin would live up to who we think he is, and treat any of his prisoners with a base level of dignity. So that's where I think it's going to go.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty easy answer to this question. Honestly, I don't think Anduin. Now, Greymane, on the other hand, even though I like how you giggle at that, Shoe Boots, because it's one of those things where you're like, no, Greymane's honorable too, and he serves his king. I think there's a lot more shade, because Greymane is whether you want to agree with this or not, I'm pretty convinced Greymane's the Alliance's version of Sylvanas. That's what they want him to be. They want him to be this darker character that still maintains his humanity in part, but he's also a savage beast. 100%.
Definitely.
And that Worgen part of him, what I would feel, what is an interesting story to me, is this idea of the two. By being a werewolf or a werewolf, he's not full Worgen, right? They call them Worgen, but they can still maintain their human form. They maintain their humanity, their autonomy, and don't go full feral Worgen, right? But how could that not constantly be in conflict with one another? That human using your, it's I don't know. I've been watching a lot of Star Trek recently, but it's it's your Kirk fighting your Picard, that brain and wisdom versus that primal, fisticuffs. Let's
Go get him.
Let's fight. Right. And that's, I think, constantly this savage. I think it's starting to take hold. I don't think we've been, because what's the timeline? Because that if they turned into Worgen during the Cataclysm, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
So he's only been a Worgen for several years, where Sylvanas has been undead for 30 or 20, 30?
Something like that, yeah. Well, when's
Yeah.
the third war? No, I think it's a little less than that, but it's a good amount of time, right?
Okay,
It's probably going to be 15, 20 years at this point.
I would say about 20 years would be my guess. And then Greymane, like I said, he's in infancy as far as this controlling. Yeah, he's got to deal with his Worgen form or whatever, but I'm wondering if it's not creeping up on his conscious, you know
Right.
what I mean? And so he's going to make out of character choices because of that. For example, whatever happens to Teldrassil, I still think it would. I'm not saying it's what would happen or what should happen, but I think it would be a really cool story if it's this attempt at peace between the former blood elf and her sister. You know what I
Right.
mean? That's, you know, the undead Banshee Queen and the Void Elf, who are now probably more something else than elves, honestly. But there's an attempt
Right.
at peace between the Alliance and the Horde, and that primal side of Greymane takes over, and he can't allow that to happen, and he attacks Sylvanas, and that ultimately, not that he burns Teldrassil to the ground to frame her. I don't think that makes sense to me. I don't know why
No.
he would, but that because he attempts to take her now, right?
Yeah.
Is what he says in the cinematic or something like that. We can take her now, or something.
We have her cornered.
We have her cornered now, or yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but
he comes
goes for
across. He comes across as kind of a Malcolm Reynolds type character of if I kill you, you will be awake, you'll be facing me, and you'll be armed.
Thank you for the Firefly reference, but I don't know. And I see, yeah, there's some of that in there, but I don't think it's. See, Mal was always in control.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he allowed himself to lose control if it was necessary, but he was always the captain.
Right.
You know what I mean? And everyone served him loyally because they knew that he was going to make, even though he made gut choices, right? And
Right.
used it and didn't always use his brain, use other parts of his body as well.
Yes. Very much so.
But yeah, he was always in control. What I'm sensing in Greymane is he's losing that control. Right?
Right.
He's so far he's not shown any way in which he has been uncontrolled. However, I have a feeling there's something about it that there's a sense of something's going to go, and I'm wondering if that doesn't come to play with the interaction with Sourfang. If that's something where, you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe not Sour. I think it's got to be more Sylvanas because that's his trigger, right? He watches someone murder his son, and all the humanity in the world. It took every ounce of his humanity to hold that back and obey his king's orders to join with her and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It had to have taken every last ounce of his humanity to do that. And then when he betrays her for the final time and his king dies because of it, I don't think he has any left. I don't think he has enough reservation left, even though he wants to respect King Anduin and all of his orders. I feel like there's going to be a time where he doesn't. And I don't know what happened, but it's just a feeling I have. I don't know. I feel like it. But when it comes to Sylvanas, I think all bets are off for Greymane. When it comes to the Horde, I think all bets are off for Greymane. I don't think. I'm not saying he starts it, and you know we've already said the Horde strikes first or whatever. But I think that at this point, it seems like Greymane's a ticking time bomb, and he needs one step out of line from anyone from the Horde, and he's just going to go crazy and kill them all. And
I think I have a theory because in the broadcast data text that we got for the Alliance scenario, so the last three are she's getting away, pursue Sylvanas in the gyrocopter. Then it is the High Lord defeat High Overlord Sourfang. Then it's the Dark Lady pursue Sylvanas. I think what that might be and how we end up with Sourfang being beaten so savagely that we are able to to rein him in and capture him is that he in some way makes it impossible for Greymane to capture Sylvanas.
He gets it between Greymane and Sylvanas. Oh, that makes perfect sense. And the fact that Greymane just goes feral and maybe even has to be like somehow sedated himself, pulled off of him. You know what I mean? Like Anduin has to cast mind control or something to be able to pull him back, because I think that's it. Greymane is a desperate and terribly he's a very, as far as the Alliance goes, I love Worgen and dwarves, man. Worgen and dwarves all day. And I love the character of Greymane, and I don't want him to be a bad guy, but it's the same reason I love Sylvanas, because they're not bad, they're not good. It's this out of control, and it's something that the audience can relate to. I'm going into a little bit of story theory now, but it's something that the audience can relate to, because we've all felt out of control. All of us and we fear being out of control, right? Control is comforting. Being out of control is terrifying. And this power that grips him, this Worgen form, right? Even though he has it under control, does he really?
Yeah.
And there's
that's
something
the ever-pervading question.
Something inside him that he's going to lose control. And what else would you lose control over except for getting revenge of your son's murderer?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and we don't want to blame him.
Right.
We can't, because we're like, yeah, no, I put myself in those shoes, I would probably do the same thing. I'd probably just kill everybody and go, and then cry. I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting storytelling, because we have those traits in ourselves. These are caricatures of our traits. These are exaggerations of our traits. Especially we take it to that him being out of control. Same thing with Sylvanas's struggle with undeath and the fear of death. Right? What mortal can honestly say they don't fear death? Come on. You do a little bit somewhere, at least in your subconscious. Everyone's afraid of the unknown, because that's what death is. It's the complete unknown. Unless you're Sylvanas, and then it's the known, and it's even more scary, and so that you run from it. So anyway, anything else real quick before we jump up to... let's go ahead and move on to will Gilneas finally have a chance to rebuild, since we're talking about Greymane already. What do you guys think? Who wants to take this one? Will Gilneas finally have a chance to rebuild? For Gilneas.
I think Shoe Boots.
I'd like to see it. I don't see Blizzard making this happen unless it serves the story, because it seems like a lot of work on their part. You know what I mean? I love the idea, and like I always feel like this was such a missed opportunity on one hand. On the other hand, I get it, but like Gilneas is super cool. Like the fact that it's not really used for anything in the game other than a starting zone is a shame to me. I would love it to be a bustling place that we could go and visit. And I know that has been asked numerous times of Blizzard, and I think that I could see them doing it if they figure out a reason to do it that serves the plot. I just don't think that the plot of Battle for Azeroth and anything we've seen so far is going to take us to Gilneas in any sort of meaningful way. So I don't think we'll see it personally.
Here's my counter argument to that, and it's because the idea that in the new expansion, right, the new expansion, the zoning or whatever the new expansion, how it's going to be the current build of the world, we're losing 2 major cities.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, the fact that Greymane's becoming more and more of a character, and we're taking control back over Lordaeron, and Gilneas is just off the coast of Lordaeron, right? That's right. Okay. That's one thing. And then the other thing is this is a South Seas expansion. And what's in the South Sea, in the middle of the South Sea? Kazan, which is where the goblins came from. The counter race, as far as timeline goes, with the with the Worgen. So I do think that there's at least a through line there that we can lose these old world or class zones, right?
Right.
Or these old class cities, and possibly gain 2 new ones in Gilneas City and Kazan, whatever we end up calling it. What is it, the Trade Prince land? I don't know. There's Gillywick's
Trade Prince Land.
I think Kazan is
Gallywig's Pleasure Palace, but that's somewhere else. That's in Asuna.
Yeah. Well, Kazan.
Ashura.
You raise an interesting idea. Kazan is already slated to be one of the dungeons of Battle for Azeroth. So
Maybe
we don't.
retaking Gilneas is going to be a dungeon or part of a raid or something.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Now we don't know if all of Kazan is this dungeon or just a part of it. That remains to be seen. But yeah.
But I also think that. Sorry, I'll let you get your 2 cents.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
In a second, Jared. But I also think that my personal opinion, by the way, just to be clear, I don't want any new zone or any new cities. I think we only need because for the most part it's Orgrimmar and Stormwind. You know what I mean? We haven't had to go to Lagforge since Vanilla. You know, that's what us old original OG gamers call the Iron Forge, because you couldn't walk through there without lagging because everyone on the server was there dancing naked on a mailbox, because it was so close to Molten Core. But anyway, yeah, I don't love the idea of having other cities, because with the way that they've handled server bloat anyway. And I don't see the servers like super filling up anytime soon. I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe BFA will bring everybody back. It'll be awesome. But I don't think we need multiple cities. And the other thing, the main cities are going to be on the new island.
Right.
Yeah, certainly they won't be the capitals of the next expansion by any means. We've already been told what those will be.
Right. The only reason I go to Stormwind, or the only reason anyone goes to Stormwind, unless once you're at max, is to go to the auction house.
Yeah,
I think that's
or just to hang out and jump from blue roof to blue roof.
Right, exactly. Just fly around, flying circles in Orgrimmar. But that's it. It's Stormwind or Orgrimmar, or whatever your current city is, whatever's closest to the raid. You know,
pretty much Dalaran.
So yeah, and so it's. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think we need new cities. I think it'd be cool, especially if they made them there, if there was a reason to have them there. But I also don't want the idea that, I have to go to this city to get this, and the bank is here, and the auction house is over there. That sounds like a complete and total hassle.
Yeah,
but dungeon
should never have,
sounds really good though.
Well, the other option, and this is what I was getting to. I don't think Gilneas is going to rebuild necessarily, but you also have to think about the geography of Eastern Kingdoms, in that Gilneas is a port city right next to Lordaeron. Therefore, with the new mechanic that we're being introduced to in Battle for Azeroth of Warfronts, I think that is perfect. Absolutely
awesome
perfect.
to
that
have
there
like
is going to be
Warfront.
like head on,
that'd be cool.
Like head on, like battles of Gilneas trying to be retaken by the Alliance and the Horde trying to stop them, because Sylvanas knows that she wants to take her city back.
Maybe that's
so. I think she is going to send forces there,
that's her
and
last
we'll have to
bastion,
repel them.
Right? That's the last. Just a very little. She's got a little bit of land over there, just off the coast of Eastern Kingdom, and she has to hold that if she wants to have any chance of retaking the Undercity. That makes a lot of sense.
As a Warfront is a great idea, because we only have one announced so far in Arathi, right?
Warfront. You mean Warcraft 4?
Well, yeah. Warfront 4.
That's what I'm looking forward most to, by the way. We didn't talk about this earlier, but with the developer Q&A with Ian's thing tomorrow, please tell us something about Warfronts. That's not just their Warfronts, and it's an RTS-ish.
And you can play them.
But it's not really, because you're the peon. You have to gather the...
I'd love to know more about them.
Job's done.
Righto. Until we know more, I'm not even really thinking about them, to be honest. Like, when I think about the features I'm most looking forward to in Battle for Azeroth, I can't possibly say Warfronts because I don't know what they are.
Nobody knows what they are,
So, and until I hear more about them, they're just like totally not in my... They're just like not in my headspace about being a significant part of the next expansion. So hopefully that changes tomorrow.
I think so too.
Hopefully so.
Any last thoughts about this topic, guys? Because we've got there's tons of stuff. Go ahead.
One last thought. I was questing through wetlands, as I said, on my dwarf shaman, and I noticed, because now the game has a much kind of longer max distance view, that when you're in the wetlands, you can clearly see Gilneas. And it really problematizes the story of it being a secluded island, like, because it's behind the wall, right, supposedly, and no one could get there for years, but it's kind of weird that you can just kind of see it across the pond. Like, it's
Right.
like it's behind this wall and no one's been able to get in there for a decade, but well, it's right there. Like, I could just swim to it.
Yeah,
It's kind of great.
Or fashion a small boat from a tree.
It's like why? So you guys couldn't figure out how to get around the wall?
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's like it's only waist deep. Like, I can ford this myself. Oh boy. Thank you for that observation, Shoe Boots.
That's what I'm here
Great.
for.
We're gonna move on to another. We have a new section of the show that we're gonna try out this week. We poured over for a long time of what we were going to title this, and we have decided, and by I say we, I mean Jared typed this out 20 minutes ago. This section of the show is entitled "Merely Some Feedback."
I'm so proud of myself for it.
Merely Some Feedback is the portion of the show where we get to hear your we're going to read off some of your tweets, answer some of your questions from Twitter or our email. Remember, you can tweet at us at Setback Podcast. You can also email the show, setbackpodcast@gmail.com. We really look forward to hearing from you. But we have a tweet from Kyle Aaron 321 today, and they tweet, "Please help my tiny little brain understand why Void Elves are a race and not a class. I feel as though the elves have accepted the Void into their hearts, but to change factions and fly a different race banner / crest is a little much. Help me come to terms." Thanks a lot, Kyle Aaron 321. I have a lot to say on this, I think, but I want to go ahead and pose this to one of you. Jared, Shoeboots took the last one. Why don't you wager? How can we help Kyle out, or should they be a class and not a race?
So I think, like, just thematically, it makes more sense if you look at it. If you look at the ways that classes are designed and you look at the ways that races are designed, it makes more sense thematically for it to be a race. They are tainted by the void, but that does not mean that they have the ability to channel the void. They're not all shadow priests. Essentially, like, if they were a class, they would be shadow priests. So I think that distinction alone is the only real thing that keeps them from being possible to be considered a class. But we also have to. We don't know exactly how the Void Elves form. We know that Illyria is the leader of the Void Elves, but we don't know how she comes to basically Sylvanas-style recruiting High Elves or Blood Elves to be infused with the Void to become their own subrace. So that's all that I have to say on the matter.
Shubus, what do you think?
Well, I mean, to some extent, I take your point, Kyle Aaron 321, because Void Elf, well, or as I call them, Velfs, are.
That's not even a thing. Like, that was just, you thought are you trying to be? You look like you were trying to be punny. I call them Velfs.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's really all I have to say. Is I just want to call it. No.
Tell me more about Velfs, Shoeboots.
So these Velfs. So here's the thing. On one hand, I'm with you. They're not a separate race. They're Blood Elves. But then again, Blood Elves are not a separate race from High Elves. But they sort of are. And Worgen aren't really a separate race from humans. They're just humans that have been cursed. So there's definitely precedent in the game for deciding that they're going to make this a different race. I mean, we even to the extent that we have Darkspear trolls and Zandalari trolls, right? They're both trolls. They look different, but they're both trolls. I mean, you could even make the argument that all elves are elves, and all elves are actually trolls even. So I guess what I would say to you is I don't personally think you should get too hung up on the idea that they call it a race. I think race is just a convenient term that they choose for flavor. And one thing that the mechanics of the game always require is that they have to categorize things that from a lore perspective don't always make sense. One great example is the paladin, right? If you're a paladin, you're not necessarily a paladin, right? If you are a blood elf paladin, or if you're a dwarf paladin or a human paladin, then yes, you are a paladin. But if you're a Draenei paladin, you're actually a vindicator. And if you're a Tauren paladin, you're actually a sunwalker. So, but for the sake of simplicity, they're just called paladins. And I think that's kind of the mentality that I choose to adopt here. I will also grant you that, from a storytelling perspective, Void Elves are clearly the most problematic allied race we've been presented with. Like, they're kind of out of nowhere. No one really asked for them. I'll be honest, like, I think they look really cool. I'm a little apprehensive about getting them.
Whoever's writing the story with Illyria and whoever is and one of the developers on the Allied Races team are obviously just best friends and think that, you know what I mean? Like, let's make an Allied race out of what we're doing with Illyria. Okay. That's what I think it is. But go ahead, Shuboots. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no, that's okay. I mean, in regards to having like the different banner and crests, again, I think that's something that you have a fair point on one hand, but on the other hand, that's something that is just a constant in WoW, right? Like every faction, whether it's a playable race or an enemy, or, whether it's the Twilight's hammer, or whether it's the Draenei, or whether it's the Lightforged Draenei, everyone just has their own crest and has their own banner, and that's just something that they do for flavor. We could probably make up a story like that we're going to be presented with a story about how these people leave the Blood Elves, and I think we're going to see that story sooner than later, because there's already been data mined text from patch 7.3.5, which is live, but we actually haven't seen this in game yet, where Illyria travels to Silvermoon and attempts to convince the Blood Elves to join the Alliance, and she fails. But some of her people follow her, and that's who become the Blood Elves. And so we're the Velfs. The Void Elves, yes. So we're going to start to see some answers to it, and we're going to have to decide for ourselves whether or not they told a good enough story to justify this whole new classification. But I think even if it doesn't, this is more has to do with game mechanics than anything else.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think like you were saying, the Void perspective is that these people either followed her or isn't this the idea that they were dabbling in the Void already, and that the Blood Elves kicked them out for that reason?
The answers to these questions are available, but I'm sorry to say I don't remember off the top of my head. There's video of the opening sequences of the Void Elf starter zone, which I haven't watched in a while, and there's also some data mine text, but I don't know. You could be right. I don't know.
That's what I thought. I remembered something along those lines, but I'm not 100% sure exactly how it is. But if that's the case, then they're not changing. They're not just being like, you know what? Forget the Blood Elves. This is stupid. And I'm tired of, users logging into the game and creating me and naming me Sephiroth with different spellings. Like, we're done with that. Right, exactly. I'm tired of that, and I'm gonna go and be all emo and have like purplish black voidy clothes and hair. I don't know, whatever. But I honestly have a problem with the Void Elves. And it's not that they're not a class, because I don't see Void. I guess you could see like some sort of Void class, but that's a Shadow Priest, like we were saying earlier. Like that's what that is. We're we're thinking like a dark. I remember we were talking about classes the other day. We can get into that discussion in a second. But I don't see void elves as a class. Maybe the void something as a class would be one thing. But I don't, and I honestly don't like the thing that I hate about demon hunters is that you have to be an elf to play one. Hate it, because I am the most elf racist person on the planet. I hate elves. I hate elves. I don't know why. They're just elfy. I remember Garrett. If you ever listen to any Garrett Weinzierl's podcast on A Move TV, he talks about how he's like there are elf people and dwarf people, and he unfortunately is an elf person. I am definitely a dwarf person, right? It's just I don't know if you can tell by the beard and the fantastic Scottish accent that was maligned on Twitter by one of my own co-hosts this week, by the way.
It was me.
But anyway, yeah, it's just, yeah, so I don't see them as a class. But I don't want to see them as a race either, because it just, I don't like, unless they got to sell me on the story, and so far they haven't. Any of the stories that I've heard so far, it's just like, I don't really know. And I get, because the truth of the matter is that all elves are actually just trolls that decided to do something else, right? Night elves evolved from trolls that found the Moonwell. That's where night elves came from. Blood elves evolved from night elves that were banished from the Moonwell because they were using magic. That's where blood elves came from, you know? And so all these different forms of elves that now we've got the void elves, right? The Nightborn are elves that, were stuck in Suramar and had to, they changed appearance based on the Nightwell, the powers they were getting from the Nightwell. So it's all these different... all the different elves, they all came from trolls anyway. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's one of those things I think they're trying to incorporate a new thing, but I feel the same way about it that I've always felt about the Elder Scrolls games. It's like, okay, you have these really cool races like the Khajiit and the whatever, the lizard people. What are those called? Come on, guys. You guys play Elder Scrolls? No?
Yes, certainly do not.
Which ones have you listened? So we got Khajiit,
the Khajiit. What are the lizard people?
Argonian.
That's it. The Khajiit and the Argonian, and then you have a bunch of different races of human and a bunch of different races of elves, and it's like, come on, guys,
and
we can do better. Oh, you got orcs, Khajiit. You know, those are really cool. And those are always the classes I want to play, or the races I want to play, because they're cool, they're unique, they're individual. And then you've got a bunch of different humans and a bunch of different elves, and I just never. I mean, I know all the elves look different, but at the same time, at least the elves look different. Like, show me the difference between a Breton and a Nord, right?
There's large differences between the Bretons and the Nords.
Out of the town, because if I made I'm gonna make a character, and you're not gonna be able to see their height, first of all, because that doesn't matter.
Okay. You're not playing ESO. First off, you're gonna play either Skyrim or you're gonna play Oblivion.
No, I know. I'm not playing ESO.
Just throwing that out.
Saying,
there.
Yeah,
okay.
I had the alpha or the beta for ESO, and it was not to my liking. And apparently it's gotten better. I don't want to talk crap about games.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. But anyway, we're beside the point. We're done. We're moving on, because all the humans look alike. You can make them look like anything you want, and they're all human. So moving on. But yeah, I think that I'll get to you, Shoe Boots. I promise. He's holding his breath right now. But yeah, I don't love it. I don't love it as a, like Shoe Boots was saying, it's the most problematic thing. And let's allow Shoe Boots to continue saying whatever he's trying to say right now.
I was just going to say, like, one thing you got to keep in mind for these allied races, which is going to be not a problem sometimes and a huge problem other times, is that it's pretty clear that the reason that they can offer so many is because they don't have to do so many things they normally have to do with a new race. They don't have to make a new skeleton. They don't have to make armor fit new things, right? Like, all of these allied races are just going to fit into all the armor in the game. It's one of the things that allows them to just knock them out quickly, right? So you can only have an allied race that has the same bone structure as an existing race. And the furthest you're ever going to see them go is either with the Void Elves or like they do with the Nightborn, which are, they look quite a bit different than Night Elves, but they, at the end of the day, are Night Elf, right? They're going to wear Night Elf armor. And so it does limit, like, we're not going to see, I could be proven wrong, but I don't think we're going to see, like, oh, then here's an allied race, here's the Naga, for example, because that's a whole new race with a whole new design and a whole new overhaul of how the armor fits. That's just not going to be a factor for any of these allied races, at least this go around for this expansion. That's why they're called allied races, right? They're not unique races. They're races that we already have, but allies of those races, I guess you could say.
Right.
And to that extent, that's why they're not making starter zones for any of these races, right? Like, there is a short starting experience, but then you're level 20, right? Like, boom, there you go. So we're not going to have to design whole new areas to the extent that we've seen before with the Pandarans and the Goblins and so on.
They're giving old models new trinkets, sort of, is kind of the way.
Right.
Like, they're wanting old things to look. And I think that my biggest problem with the allied races so far isn't the Void Elves. I get it. I get what they're trying to do. People like Blood Elves and the Blood Elf model for whatever reason. And they want them, and now they want emo Blood Elves, which that's super memey. It's going to be great. I can't wait. But my problem is that I think Blizzard missed a huge opportunity, and I know people are going to argue with me over this, but the High Mountain Tauren and the Dark Iron Dwarves are joining the wrong factions. The High Mountain Tauren should absolutely be joining the Alliance, and the Dark Iron Dwarves should absolutely be joining the Horde. And it works from a lore perspective too, especially if something happens in Dwarf world where the dwarves, like, especially if not Magni is because there's this idea that Magni is corrupted, right? Because he's speaking to Azeroth, and all the old gods have their tentacles in Azeroth or whatever. So Magni is corrupted, and he's kind of what's sort of holding this alliance together between the three factions of the, not really holding it together, but he's the father of Moria, who was a traitor to the Dwarf Kingdom back in Vanilla when she joined the Dark Iron Dwarves and married the king. That we had to go and kill in, which is Blackrot? No, was it Blackrot Depths? No, it wasn't. No, that was
with Tharzan.
Was it Tharzan? Yeah, Emperor Tharzan. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. The scene is already set for distrust there and disloyalty, and she could easily be attacked or kicked out of the triumvirate in some way, or somebody, maybe Falstad, decides to take over as the king, and he gets elected back, and he's like, yeah, I'm not dealing with Dark Iron anymore. Something could happen there, right? We could make that work. Even though there's an alliance now, this is Warcraft. We've had alliances with the Horde every expansion, and it always gets broken. So that would be an interesting thing. But the cool thing about that is, and I don't remember if I've said it on this show or before, or CTR, and I'm going to continually say this until Blizzard changes their mind before BFA and fixes it. But because how awesome would it be as an Alliance player? What's the race? What's the one race? Not even the one, but if you could choose any Horde race that you kind of want to be, because it's so unique and different, and there's nothing like it on the Alliance, I would say it's the Tauren. You know what I mean? I think the Tauren are really cool. And maybe that's just me because I love cow people. But it's one of those things. And it makes tons, because the Tauren are a peaceful race. The Tauren aren't the savage orcs or the trolls or the undead, these kind of dark. The Tauren were just a peaceful race hanging out in Mulgore, and they were, consistently bombarded by Quillboars. And the orcs showed up to help them out. And because of that, and because the Tauren are honorable and loyal, they decide to help the orcs. It makes total sense that Sylvanas would come to the Tauren and be like, or come to the High Mountain Tauren and be like, join us. And they're like, you're a ghost. We're not, this isn't, this is kind of, I know we're supposed to honor our ancestors and stuff, but you're like literal evil incarnate. And we're kind of uneasy about that. But the Alliance, on the other hand, need their help now too, and they could have done it. So I think it would have made sense lore-wise. I think it would have been awesome as far as gameplay goes, because how cool it would be to be an Alliance Tauren. And the other thing is, the difference between the High Mountain Tauren and the regular Tauren is what? Their horns.
Moose.
It's their horns.
Moose.
That's all it is, and some tattoos. But the difference
Yeah.
between any Alliance race and a High Mountain Tauren is everything. And that would have been cool. And think the same thing on the Horde side. As a Horde, I started Horde. And, I'm a Dwarf guy. I really wanted to play a Dwarf. And that's ultimately why I ended up rolling Alliance at one point. Just because I wanted to play a Dwarf. Having the Dark Iron Dwarves on the Horde, which totally makes sense. Why didn't you do it, Blizzard? I need somebody, please. Anybody from Blizzard. Why didn't you do that? Why did you not? Why would you not make that choice?
I'll grant you that the idea of the Dark Irons joining the Horde is interesting and plausible, but I actually think one of the purposes of the allied races, I'm actually against the idea of giving Horde and Alliance what they've always wanted to play on the other side. I don't like that homogenization. I actually am quite opposed. The two allied races that I'm not happy about is the Nightborn going to the Horde and the Void Elves going to the Alliance. I think that I don't like that homogenization, and I think from a storytelling perspective, it's way out of left field that the Nightborn would join the Horde. I know they've planted a few seeds there for it here and there, but to me, it just doesn't make sense. The Nightborn should be joining the Night Elves. To me, that's just how I see it. To the same degree, I agree with you about that there's a plausible story to tell about the Dark Irons joining the Horde. I don't see one for the High Mountain at all. I see if they're going to join a side, they're going to join their brethren.
And that makes sense. That makes sense.
But I mean, yeah, like if it was up to me, I would probably.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I probably would have scrapped the Void Elves. I wouldn't have put them in the game myself, and I would have sent the Nightborn to the Alliance, and then who knows what I would have done for the Horde? Maybe give them
Murlocs.
Well, I was going to say brown-skinned orcs. That's a big demand.
Yeah, that was a big one. Which that would have made a lot of sense too. And
they could come from the Draenor, yeah. So,
and it's not necessarily homogenization, but because I think you still should have races that are very uniquely Horde. Like I don't think there should be, or no matter how much I want it, I don't think there should be orcs in the Alliance. You know what I mean? Because the Horde is orcs. I don't think there should be humans in the Horde. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the Alliance is, and I don't think there should be dwarves either, but Dark Iron dwarves are something a little different. You know what I mean? High Mountain Tauren are something a little different. The fact that the Worgen even joined the Alliance I thought that was the coolest thing. So I was like, yay, a monster race. Like we get to be something cool now. I might actually, and I was actually really excited about playing Worgen as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was a missed opportunity. I really do. I get what you're saying, but it's not. It would just be, and then in that case I would also switch the Void Elves or get rid of the Void Elves and do brown orcs and bring the Nightborn over to the Alliance side. But that's what I think they did with the elves. Like they're like, oh, let's let the other faction play the other elf model, and I hate it. I hate it. They did it for the elves and not for the cool races. Why didn't you do it for the cool races? Because no one cares about elves, dude, except for Garrett.
Yeah,
Garrett, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm not even sorry. I can't even say I'm sorry. I hate elves. I just hate them. I hate their stupid little faces, and I think they're like the thing about an elf is like I can't see an honest elf. You know what I mean? It's like they're always like snooty and like I've got something. Yeah, they're looking down their nose at you, and it's just every elf. Legolas,
they are quite tall.
Legolas, all of them. Hello.
Right.
I'm smarter and more beautiful than you. And I don't even diet or exercise. I'm an elf. And I'm like, you know what? My ancestors is the frickin' planet, dude. Rock people. We're moving on. We're going to close it out at that. Thanks, guys. That was and Kyle Aaron, once again, thanks for your feedback. We really appreciate anybody sending us some stuff. We're thinking about new segments and stuff that we're adding to the show. We've got a lot of exciting things coming, so stay tuned. We want to get you guys more involved, and the Discord is one of the new things that we want to get you involved. As a matter of fact, real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. We got our first join in Discord, by the way. I was getting messages.
Yeah, me too.
Messages throughout.
Same.
So, Drood has joined our Discord. I want a huge thank you to Drood, who also mentioned that they joined up on our Patreon, which I'm going to go ahead and skip to that because I want to just do a big special shout out to all of our new patrons that we've had since the last episode. Drude, you're one of them. Daniel Bernstein is another. Chihei S. Poor is another person that has been so gracious to donate some of their hard-earned dollars to help us out at the show. We don't expect you guys to give us money. We're doing this for fun, but it just means so much to us that you enjoy this so much that you would be willing to donate your money to help us out a little bit, pay for some expenses, and keep getting you guys more and better content, which is what it's all about for us. So we can't, from me and the other guys on the show, thank you immensely. I'm just going to babble about this every time I talk about the Patreon because I can't shut up about how much it means to me and how important you guys are and how much we want to continue to give you content. So, and how grateful we are that you shared with us. So thank you very much to all of you guys. We also have that Discord server. There's a server link here in the show notes that I'm not going to read that off for the podcast.
It's on Twitter.
It's on Twitter. I'm going to try to get it on the Patreon page as well. So if you missed the tweet or if you can't find it, and we'll try to tweet that out a couple times over the next couple days so that you guys have that information. If you're listening to the show, even tweet at us, hey, what's that Discord server again? We'll get back to you. And that's at Setback Podcast. But we're going to go ahead and close the show out. That's going to be it. And I just want to thank everybody, my brothers in arms here for joining us. All of you out there in the chat room, thank you for joining us. All of you out there listening to us on your treks to work, in your subways and or cars and or bikes, or on your feet. I don't know how you get to work. However you get to work with Setback. Let us make work just a little less awful, just a little bit, or more awful. I don't know. Maybe you hate us, but we don't hate you. We love you. Keep in mind, you can get in touch with us in different ways. I've mentioned again, I'll mention it one more time. You can tweet at Setback Podcast to get in touch with the show. You can send us an email at setback or Gmail. Setbackpodcast at gmail.com. Jared, how can we get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me on Twitter at prosperity_42. You can also find me on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/prosperity42.
And Shoe Boots, what do we do if we want to talk to the shoe?
You can contact me at the Shoe Boots is my Twitter handle. I also have the email address theshoeboots@gmail.com, and my Twitch, which I'm hopefully we'll have announcements soon about kind of my big launch plans for my Twitch channel I've been working on, will be twitch.tv/theshoeboots, where you can sometimes see this dog, if you're watching the video right now, that usually by the end of the show gets sick of me not paying attention to her, so I have to hold her so she doesn't make noise.
Scratching your leg. Yeah, that's exactly what was happening earlier. I think you're just copying me because I had cute puppy time earlier, and you're like, I can't let Sharku have all the cute puppy time.
Right.
I like what do you have to do to get touch with the shoe? I don't know. Touch by the shoe? Wait, what's happening? I was trying to make something great and funny happen, but as always, it didn't work out. And I'm Sharku. You can find me on Twitter at Sharku_CTR. Sometimes I'm streaming Sharku_CTR on Twitch as well. You can also catch me on the Convert to Raid BattleNet News, which we're recording tomorrow night. It records every Tuesday night at 11 Eastern. And I'm hoping that they move that up an hour because, oh my God, 11 Eastern gets late when you're recording a podcast Eastern time, and it's 1 o'clock before you get done, and then you have to try to wind down before bed when you have work at 8. Nah, it's never fun, never fun. But yeah, if you guys have any feedback, make sure you send it to our email or our Twitter. We really want to hear from you. We hope that you enjoy the show. We want to hear what we did well, what we need to do better. You just want to send us a tweet and say, hey, say my name on the podcast. All right, do it. Do it right now. But yeah, we love hearing from you guys. You're the reason we do this. We have a lot of fun, just giving you some cool podcasting things. If you, we already talked about the Patreon. We're going to move on to 5-star reviews. I want to shout out some of our reviewers. We got a few 5-star reviews, Jared.
We have four new, a couple that I missed, or one that I missed last show, and I can't say your name because it is very vulgar. And
We're just
going to
call him. We're just going to call him Richard.
But
thanks, Richard.
Richard, that's a good one. Thank you so much for your 5-star review, but I can't say your full name. But you know who you are.
You know who you are, Richard.
But the other three that we got in this past week, Disto88, Ken Nabi, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and then Mouse Divided, all gave 5-star reviews. Thank you guys so very much for that.
Canada, you need to shape up. America's beating you like we do in everything.
Except hockey.
Except hockey.
And lifespan.
It's all right. And healthcare. Wait, what? And having a president that doesn't taunt nuclear arms maniacs. Moving on. No politics, no politics. That's my thing that I say in class now, by the way. Anytime I say something stupid, I just go no politics, like it didn't happen. But anyway, that's going to be the show tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us. That's it. That's all. We leave you, as always, with our catchphrase.
Catchphrase. That was a dandy catchphrase.